Hello and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia Show. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown, and with me is one of my contributing partners, Immaculate. How you doing today, Immaculate?
Good. How we doing today?
Ah, if I'm being honest, I'm getting tired. The last 2 days has been I had to take time off. I had a death in my family. I haven't told
Oh,
anybody that, but my last grandparent died, and if I didn't have my shows, I would have been really emotional all week. So this conference realignment in Colorado and the ACC, all these different groups have really helped me with my coping. I know it sounds crazy, but that's actually what I've been doing. So I appreciate you asking. Thank you.
well, sorry to hear about your loss. That's
Uh,
never easy, family
right.
member. But you're right. Having something there to kind of keep your mind going, it can definitely be helpful. So here we are.
Absolutely. All right. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and get started. We got a lot of people here today. So first, I want to ask everybody or thank everybody for being here. Please don't forget to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment or suggestion. For the first time, I'm actually starting to fall behind on my comments and suggestions for the shows that we do. The impact that we've had in the last, I would say, 3 weeks, Immaculate, has been incredible. Do you agree?
It's definitely taken off. Just kind of jumping on and talking with you every once in a while, and now to this point in pretty quick fashion. And I got to say, it's also really good timing.
Well, of course, that's absolutely true. I want to bump one of my partners, and that's Coup Connect. If you're a BYU fan and you're not signed up to Coup Connect, the NIL, grab your phone, scan that QR code up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. It'll take you to the subscription uh, level for Coup Connect. Sign up for $10. If we get 50,000 people sign up for $10, that's how much? That's $500,000 that would go to subsidizing these players. If we want to compete at the highest level, we have to give them money, and the only way to do that is through Coup Connect. So please take an opportunity to do that. If you have questions about it, I'm happy to answer them offline. Send me a DM, and I'll take those up. The other thing I want to bring up is all the new subscribers that I've got to the show. I want to recognize. Well, actually, the list went away on me. I'll see if I can find it while Immaculate's talking, but it's getting substantial. I think I'm over 12 or 13 subscribers, and that was on an idea I did on a fly. I'm going to be buying some towels. I'm going to be sending out to the top level subscribers. Otherwise, I have a channel that I've built that I'm putting my early tips into, and hopefully we're giving some information out before it hits, say, Greg Flugar. Anyway, I'd like to welcome everybody here to the show tonight. We do have a very busy schedule. I wanted to start off first with Colorado and get Immaculate's thoughts on sort of that, rounding that out, and then we'll go into Arizona. So, Immaculate, tell me
Yes,
what you're thinking. Colorado and Arizona. Wrap that up.
Colorado first. We've been talking about this for a while, and I think it's no big claim to say saw this coming. But once it actually does happen, it's a very big deal. And I think it's changed the mentality and the mindset of people out there that I've seen. A lot of people didn't think it was possible. And now, broadly speaking, I think the vast majority of people have come around to seeing things maybe in a similar way as we do. So I'd say Colorado's movement, that from my perspective, that's the biggest thing that has happened, is that everyone now realized that the bigger picture is now much more possible. So that's been pretty exciting for me to see.
And Arizona?
As far as Arizona goes, I still have them slotted as number 2. And there's some competition for it now. Some other schools working out. I've got Oregon as a 50-50 shot. They might be coming to the Big 12, and so they might be looking to jump in front of that. But I think that pushes Arizona to say, well, we weren't sure, but we're definitely sure now. We need to go.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Sorry.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Go ahead.
I want to introduce everybody to Matt Moon. He's a super super contributor to BYU, and we've talked a little bit on Twitter, and I wanted to get his opinion on some different things today. Matt, can you introduce yourself and say why BYU is such a big deal for you?
Yeah, for sure. Can you guys hear me first off?
Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. Okay. Just got a new microphone, so I just wanted to double check.
No
Yeah,
problem.
so my name is Matt Moon. I am nothing special, right? Like I'm a BYU fan. I went to BYU for a little bit, but yeah, I follow BYU like crazy. I contribute to Vanquish the Foe. I actually have a little YouTube channel that I'm starting to run up, get started covering college football and BYU and some other things. But BYU, it's just like one of those cultural things for me. I was raised in like I'm only 23, so I was raised during like the early Mountain West years, and it just like consumed my life from as young as I can remember. And as I've gotten older and, you know, starting to get more into like the sports media like arena and just covering things a little bit here and there, it became like this unhealthy addiction for me. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Which
Yeah.
is why you're here tonight.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So before I share this Jason Shear article, really quick, what's your breakdown? What's your look and opinion about Colorado moving, and then this possibility Arizona's right behind them?
Yeah, I love the Colorado move. I think it's perfect. I mean, Colorado obviously was in the Big 12, Big 8, and then, you know, before that for about 60 years. And so I think it's a great move just on a level, on a football level, and culturally it's moving back toward being a good fit for Colorado to be in the Big 12 as well. And then Arizona, I think Arizona, under the right circumstances, obviously Arizona is a basketball powerhouse, and I think under the right circumstances they could be great at football. The Phoenix market is so big, and obviously they're not. Are they? I don't know. Is U of A in Phoenix?
They're in Tucson.
Yeah, they're in
Okay.
Tucson, yeah.
Either way, it's a big market, right? And
Yep.
it could bring so much. So I think it makes a lot of sense there. And then as a BYU, from a BYU slant, brings a lot of, you know, travel partners into the conference for BYU, not having to travel 1,000 miles no matter where we're playing. So
yeah, it's us and UCF, right?
Yeah.
Flying all over the country because we're so remote. But hopefully that changes going forward. Let me call out before I get to the Jason Shear article. The first people in the house first, there's Sooner Lemon, who's a recent subscriber. I appreciate that. BR is here. Let's go. Sergeant Pickles, another subscriber. All three of those are subscribers, by the way. If you want to subscribe to the show, go to, in fact, I brought that up. I want to show that. I'm glad I remember to do this because I always forget to show everybody. So this right here is a join button. That's what you have to click to subscribe to the channel. And then these are the different subscriber levels. And each one you can just click on and then hit the join button, and YouTube will do the rest of the work. People have asked me over and over where I find this stupid join button. In my opinion, it should be right here in the middle, a big red X, but they didn't do that. So anyway, so let's see here. Immaculate's here, obviously. Andrew Barchak, another subscriber. Let's see. Boy, so many subscribers. Laura Weiss, nice to see you, Laura. Classic Sports. I'm not sure I've seen you before, but I appreciate you being here, and I'll try to get to your comment a little bit later. Let's see. Craig Hirsch and Kaufman and Joe Coy and App Biochemist. I mean, it just keeps going and going, guys. Cougar Phil and David Hackett. I really appreciate everybody being here. It's not a show about calling out names, but I want to recognize the people that are here first. And if I missed your name, don't take it personally. I just can't read that fast. All right. So let's get to this Jason Shear article. And I'm not going to read the whole article like Greg does, for instance. But these two paragraphs really set me off. It says, this is a statement from the Pac-12. We fully acknowledge that every school in the Pac-12 wanted to keep the conference together. After all, it would have meant that there was good enough media deal in place that George Kliavkoff was able to deliver the stability that the conference members want so badly. Unfortunately, that's just not the case. There are no hard numbers being presented and no insight for the Pac-12. So right now, I'm going to put you guys both on the spot. Is the Pac-12 going to lose Utah, basically the four corners, and Oregon and Washington before they kick off in September?
I would say not. I don't think they're going to lose every single one of them before then, but the Pac-12 as we know it is going to look different in my opinion, before the season begins. I think we're going to get at least one more announcement, if not 2 or 3. But I don't know if all of them are going to be gone by the time the season starts.
Immaculate.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you say that again? I was responding to Pickles there in chat.
I appreciate you engaging in chat. That really works. And you can do that too, Matt. You just go over to that chat and comments area. You can also do that. Basically, I asked, what did I even ask? I asked, do you think the Four Corners and Oregon and Washington will be gone for the 24 season by kickoff in September?
Good question.
It is a good question. That's why I asked
will
you.
go into this because my answer has changed very quickly. Before, just a couple days ago, I would have said no, that there was going to be a bridge deal to get them on into the future, to get into their new conferences in the better timeline. But now, for whatever reason, Colorado's departure has caused a lot of schools that were very quiet to suddenly have a lot of leaks about them.
Right.
And I don't think that's coincidental. I don't think that they didn't have anything to do with that. I think whatever deal that may have been in place probably had some good amount to do with the fact that Deion Sanders was at Colorado.
Right.
Love him, hate him, 1-11. I get it. It's a story, and he has turned that place around in terms of how many eyeballs are on it. So I think that he would have been part of that deal. And so with them gone, it looks like it's made a big difference. And I think now these schools really have to worry about what are they going to have in place for the 2024 season, because their current deal ends before that. It ends in July of next year.
Yeah.
So if they don't have something in place for that, that does serious damage to their athletic departments. And so I think that we may see the Pac doesn't even exist by that point,
right,
let alone those 4 moving, because even Washington to the Big Ten, whereas before they might have had a deal to bridge them for a while, they now need something a lot sooner, possibly. So
we're going to talk about that. That's the ACC piece that really blew up today, but you and I knew about it a couple days ago. So that's something that we're going to bring up in the call a little bit later. Sergeant Pickles, I love this comment because it's absolutely true. There's this wandering band of contributors that go to, like subscribers and people that watch and participate that go from show to show to show. Greg Pflugar's show is obviously the one I worship. Following him up is awesome. It's not arranged, actually. We don't have a deal or anything, but it's nice to see people going all around from each group and basically protecting each other. And I think that's really cool. And I just want to recognize that because it is funny when Sergeant Pickles is here and then he saw Immaculate over at Pflugar's show. Anyway. All right, so let's do that jump now. Let's talk about ACC because I think everybody's tired of the Pac-12. Are you guys tired of the Pac-12?
In a way, I kind of appreciate as a BYU fan, not like a dedicated media guy, I kind of appreciate watching the crumble just due to the turning their noses up at BYU for 50 years. But yeah, it's
a guilty pleasure, right? All right. So this is my thoughts, and this is what I need feedback from you guys because I'm still exploring how it would work. And we already know, it's already been announced, Greg went through some of them, that these ACC schools have not only thought about breaking the gore for the ACC, but they've also talked about maybe either challenging it in court or just paying the fee outright, which could be hundreds of millions of dollars. And in my opinion, everybody's focusing on those 7 strong teams: Virginia Tech, Virginia, Clemson, Florida State, Miami. Who am I missing? Pitt. These schools that think that they're going to be guaranteed spots at North Carolina in the SEC and the Big Ten. I have a theory, and I think it's called my game theory, that nobody wants to be Washington State or Oregon State. Everybody in the country is watching and they're seeing that these conferences are disintegrating at record speed. if you had a chance to get out, but you could be one of the first to escape, so you guarantee your ride like Colorado did. Was Colorado the most attractive brand in the Pac-12 that could have gone to the Big 12?
Not long term, short
No.
term.
I mean, it was a short-term gain. It was a bridge to say, hey, we're for real as a conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't you want to be, if you're Wake Forest or Boston College, Syracuse, why wouldn't you give Brett Yormark a call and say, hey, look, we're thinking about doing this. We could be the 8th vote, blows the whole thing up, but you get that spot in the Big 12.
Do you want me to speak on that, or would you like to, Matt?
Of course, yeah. I'm asking for both of you.
For me, I'm just going to say Colorado is a bit of an anomaly. Their AD, and I'm going to parrot the words of Joel Klatt, although not in a direct quote, that their AD is probably the most consequential AD of the year, maybe even going farther back, just looking at where they were and the choices he's made and now where they are. But I don't think everyone else is going to be like that. And you're going to see some of those schools be more like the rest of the pack. The ACC and the pack kind of similar in that regard. Who's going to be willing to be the first? I think we're seeing that right now. Like, it's FSU. They've seemingly got the people to support them in doing this. I think the rest are going to now sit back and let them do the heavy lifting. So I don't see anyone really reaching out and jumping ahead of that. I think you're going to see this probably pressure a bigger move. I don't want to get into too much in outline here because it's going to take too long. But no, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot coming out of there until at least after this meeting at Florida State.
All right. Okay, Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I think ultimately, Florida State, maybe Miami, maybe Clemson are going to be doing a lot of that, like lobbying and trying to collapse the grant of rights that they have.
Right.
But I just don't know how effective they're going to be. I mean, those things are pretty ironclad, as we've been told quite a bit. And I just to get out of a grant of rights that still has over 10 years left on its in its lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be brutal, just on a legal basis. So I think there's going to be some lobbying, and they could very well end up pulling it off. But I don't know if it's going to be successful, at least within the next 3 to 4 years. Maybe when they knock a little bit of the lifespan off on that.
So we're all looking towards 2026 for the college football playoff renegotiation, right? That's a big date for everybody. And reorganization and consolidation is a watchword that we've been talking about a while on our shows. Immaculate's put some of the engineering behind some of those ideas, but are we only 3 conferences in 2025, 2026?
I'll go as far as to say 2024.
3 conferences in 2024.
This is going faster than I had envisioned. I didn't even know what was going to happen to get the ball rolling in the ACC publicly. We got the FSU comments. They were pretty out there in terms of how they felt about the conference. Clemson backed that up. North Carolina backed that up. Miami backed that up. So we had this cadre that came out publicly, and then we had the Magnificent Seven, and it's kind of been building. Then it went quiet. But why they need to do this quickly is because of 2026. The deal on the conference football playoff runs out. They need to come up with a new thing for that. It's kind of hard to figure out what they're going to do for that if they don't have the rest of the system in place. So if they're going to go to an A3, then they kind of need to know that and have that in place so they can write up what they're going to do in 2026. And you don't just do that. The conference football playoff board that runs it is, all the conferences plus Notre Dame. So it's not a quick process. It's going to be political. So I do believe that with this going so quickly as it is, I think they're aiming towards 2024 to have this figured out. I could be wrong, but that
is absolutely crazy. And Matt, what do you think? That's a possibility?
I think it is. I think 2024 in my mind might be a little bit early, but then again, they changed the college football playoff structure before the
They did.
original set of time was supposed to expire. So it's
Right.
definitely doable. And that's actually a good point, is if they're able to, if they come to the table early to renegotiate the college football playoff structure, at that point, that might give the ACC an opportunity, or the ACC teams, the Magnificent Seven or whoever,
Right.
an opportunity to disband and to get the conference to collapse. And then at that point, I do think it's the ACC or the SEC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12 picking who, obviously the SEC and then the Big Ten and then the Big 12 in that order, picking who they want.
Right.
But I do think that is a possibility, considering, if they were to change the structure early.
Here's a comment from Andrew, who's one of our subscribers. He says, Big 12 football culture would improve Washington and Oregon, in my opinion. Maybe wanting them to stay if they decide to jump. That has been the argument. You bring in, you do whatever you can to get Oregon, Washington in, and maybe they're real successful and they decide to stay. Because if the money becomes more fair, there's no reason they need to be in the Big Ten. The only reason that's a big deal now is because there's such a difference between the Big 12 and the Big 10's media deals. I mean, it's light years different. So if Brett Yormark could bring in these other brands, Utah, Arizona State, I mean, if it's not pie in the sky anymore, that they could come in, renegotiate with Fox and ESPN. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I could see 45, true. 50 million, and now they're only behind by 15 or 20 million. Washington wins it one year, goes all the way to the final. I mean, anything can happen once the leagues are consolidated and redefined. Don't you guys think that's what I see?
Yeah, for sure. I think, especially, based on what Andrew was saying, if the Pacific Northwest schools join and one or all of the Four Corner schools potentially join, I don't think that's going to happen, but if that happens and Brett Yormark is able to go to Fox and ESPN and say, hey, we basically trimmed the fat from what was left over. We've consolidated into a nationwide power conference, and get that media deal up closer to the Big Ten and SEC, then that's been something I've been thinking about. Could get Oregon and Washington to stay, as opposed to jumping to the Big Ten, where they're going to be traveling across the country every single week, basically.
Right. Yeah, that's true. What do you think, Immaculate? You always scare me with your long sighs. I'm like, what is he going to say that is going to blow me away? I'm just teasing. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough point right now. Like, just going into Oregon here quick, I think I give them a 50-50 shot of landing in the Big 12. And if that happens, I haven't really done any looks into how much that affects the valuation.
Right.
But it definitely takes it up. My biggest thing that I see for the Big 12 in the future, which is not a broad talking point that people are going to see much, is that once what's going to happen with the ACC, once again, in my opinion, happens, ESPN is going to push the ACC network into the Big 12.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. So they roll in. Yeah, I remember that.
So it just comes over there. So how you stick that in the hands of Yormark, and what kind of a tool is that? I mean, it's certainly better than it's been in the hands of the ACC. The ACC has not been a great partner to ESPN. I don't care what people say. They have not been a great partner. Everything that Yormark has been talking about, I bet you at least half of it has been suggestions to him by ESPN.
Oh, sure. And Fox.
Yeah.
I think he's talked to both of them.
So the fact that, when he says he's open for business, he's open for business. And if you're ESPN and you basically, the ACC becomes no more and you've pushed most of those schools into the SEC and the Big 12,
right?
Well, you're sitting here with this network and all of this infrastructure. Just throw it right into the Big 12 and it's in good hands, especially if you go into New York City with a bunch of basketball schools. To the rest of the people, that seems like a weird idea, but I really paid attention to what he said about basketball and where he saw it in the future. And if he gets into the Northeast corridor with that, that's pretty powerful.
Right. It certainly brings eyeballs. And
Yeah.
that's what he's looking for, is a younger set. He's trying to get those 18 to 34s. He wants the younger generation, because he says in his words that basketball is the most popular. So, the sky's the limit. It really is. Before I get to Nick's comment here, I just want to, there's a lot of people that have joined, new people that are to the channel. Please subscribe, turn on your notifications, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment or suggestion. I try to get to all those. And then think about subscribing. If you subscribe, these comments that I'm trying to pull out are highlighted, so I know which ones to use for the subscribers. They get preference. Or you could do a super chat. Super chats always go to the top of the table. It doesn't matter where we're at, and we'll always get those comments in. I know people care and they want to have them highlighted. So anyway, there's that for you. Nick M says, I think there's a real possibility that Oregon and Washington makes a move announcement prior to week 0. I'm guessing he's saying move. Are you saying Big 10? Or are you saying Big 12 there, Nick? All right, let's see.
I would say Washington 95% to the Big 10.
You think it's that high?
Yes. I definitely think the Big 10 wants them eventually, and if they leave them to not having a network deal next year, it does serious damage to them. And if you see them as being valuable, you don't want damage done to them, and so you might have to move sooner than you intended to.
Right, that's fair.
Yeah.
Let's change the subject here. We've got Matt, who's a somewhat of a more tuned in person to BYU. Let's just divert for a moment here. Let's talk BYU for 2023.
Yeah.
For those new people that are watching, stick around. You're going to get some deep blue knowledge about how BYU is going to do in this next coming year. So Matt, you do a lot of what do you want to call it, contributing writing and whatnot for this subject, right? What's the overall tone of the people you're dealing with over there?
It's sneakily positive, sneakily optimistic. People are honestly really happy about the Big 12 voting and how BYU came in at 11th and stuff like that.
Right.
People within, the BYU sphere and people that are tied to the program, people within the program are, like I said, sneakily optimistic, and they think there's going to be a lot of eyes that are opened when the season starts, once BYU starts playing.
So I think the over/under was 6 or 6.5.
I think it was 5.5.
Was it 5? No, it wasn't 5.5.
For the Vegas voting odds?
No, I think it's.
Okay.
Today it's 6.5. I don't know
Okay.
what it was when you're. Maybe it was. Maybe it started there.
It might have gone up, but
yeah. What do you? I mean, even 5.5 is ridiculous. 6.5. Do you think they win 7 games?
I think they win a little bit more than 7. I'm looking at the schedule, and I'm looking at it as long as BYU is able to stay healthy.
Right,
I'm looking at a potential of 9 wins on the high end.
Wow.
But 7 to 8 on like a realistic scenario for me.
I have a projection too, but I'm not going to say it quite yet. Immaculate, what do you think?
Here's my thing about the new Big 12 is I think I've kind of told myself I'm not going to go in with any projections or predictions, and I think that's why I like the conference now. Is after TCU last year and no one's seen anything, I think BYU could come in and possibly win it, but I also think that they might come in and find that there's some things they need to work on to better match up with the teams that are there, going forward. I don't know. I would tend to think that they're stronger than a 500 team. With that.
Okay.
So I definitely think they're going to be in the top half of the conference.
So I've been on record several times that they could win anywhere from 7 to 9 games. And the 2 games to watch are West Virginia and Oklahoma at home. If they win those 2 games, they could get to 9, Matt. You're right. But there's some trap games. Kansas, the very first Big 12 game ever in Kansas, that is not pretty. They're a good team. West Virginia, again, is a very tough out. I'm not sure how well they travel, but man, they play hard at home. BYU hasn't historically done well there. Let's see what other games. I think Cincinnati is the first home game. I sort of take that as rote. Texas is a toss-up if Taysom Hill runs the flag out at the beginning of the game, because Taysom Hill owns Texas. And then Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. Texas Tech's probably going to be the toughest game. I think that's probably the one I'm scared most about, and that's at home. But they're a very good team.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I agree with you on the West Virginia one. BYU just historically does not play very well on the East Coast,
Right.
in the Eastern time zone. So that is one. When we went out to Arrowhead Stadium in 2015 or 2016, either way, it was a similar situation where BYU on paper was the better team. I didn't even know much about West Virginia at that point in the season, and BYU almost won, but they played a really poor game. BYU, like I said, historically they don't play well on the East Coast. So I'm looking at West Virginia as a big one. I'm pretty scared of Texas, to be honest. I know BYU has a lot of like psychological advantage over Texas fans, but this Texas team is so unbelievably talented. They're one of the most talented teams in the last 10 years in all of college football, in my opinion.
Right.
So, and then TCU in Fort Worth, BYU. I feel like they've only won about 50% of the games that they've played at Fort Worth. So those are the ones I'm looking at. Oklahoma, I'm really positive looking at BYU's home schedule. I kind of look at the Cincinnati game as a 99% chance of victory. Just
right.
the situation surrounding it. The first home game at LaVell Edwards Stadium in the Big 12.
Right.
It's going to be very difficult for Cincinnati to win that game. And Oklahoma at home, again, it's senior night. It's in November. There's going to be a lot of, if either one of the teams coming into that game is good in any way, shape, or form, it's going to be tough for Oklahoma to win, because if Oklahoma's good, BYU is going to be doing everything they can to screw up their season. And if BYU is good, then obviously we know what fans are able to do in LaVell's house when that goes on. So those are the ones that I'm looking at. And then there are some toss-ups like Oklahoma State could go either way. And we just have no clue how Oklahoma State is going to look this year. And then Arkansas is another one where I'm more positive than most people on the Arkansas game, just based on, I guess, conjecture of some ideas I have about their program. But going out to Fayetteville is going to be tough. So that's another one that I kind of look at as a 50-50. But
I think you're being very kind, 50-50. That Arkansas game could be absolutely ugly, or if BYU plays like, if the defense supports the offense, I think BYU can win. It's all about Jay Hill and his defense this year. That's the difference between 5 wins and 9 wins is the defense. Yeah. And I'm not putting pressure on any individual. I've actually met I've met Harrison Taggart, for instance. Guy's a stud. I think they're going to be great, but it's a new scheme, new coach. Everything's new. So even BYU fans have no idea what's coming up. All right, I'm only asked one more BYU question, and then we'll get back to the ACC, because that's where all the smoke was today. And David Griffin, stick around. I like your comment there. So BYU is going to be in this conference now with a lot more resources, and they're going to have a lot more access than they've ever had. In 5 years, can BYU win the Big 12 championship even once?
5 years, I would say by the 5th year they can. I think 5 years is the earliest that BYU is going to do it. Okay. Unless, they can string together a series of 2 or 3 stud recruiting classes in the next 2 or 3 years, and then maybe year 4.
I think it's very fair, and I think you got the heart of it. It is absolutely those recruiting classes. Immaculate, again, you're a third party. You have no axe to grind. What do you think about BYU's? I mean, you know the potential's there because we recruit the whole country. Go ahead.
I have a very easy comparison to make.
Okay. Okay.
TCU, now they weren't new, but it was a new coach, new regime, new everything.
Right.
TCU did it in 1.
That's true.
And
that's true.
You could point out some similarities there. Of course, there are also some big differences. TCU's in a great hometown and a great recruit bed, but this is a game that BYU has played for years in terms of being, the nationwide brand, recruiting nationwide, bringing in folks. So if anyone is prepared for a coast-to-coast conference that the Big 12 is turning out to be, it's BYU. Personally, I think that the schedule I'm looking at it right now for this year is murder's row.
Yeah, it's a
BYU
really
is
tough
just
game.
oof.
Yeah.
Going to TCU, tough.
Yeah.
Going to Texas, tough. Going to Oklahoma State for the last game of the year, tough.
Yeah.
Oklahoma coming in before that. I would say if you guys get 500, that's a good year. That's a really good first year. But after that, I think you guys are things are gonna look up for you. They're just kind of using you guys because you guys bring numbers for ratings. They're kind of using you to put up against these teams to get numbers.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But we are the only the only new school that got both Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, and it's because of the ratings that BYU gets and
Exactly.
trying to get as much money off of Texas and Oklahoma before they leave.
Right. I just want to recognize that there was a reason behind it. It wasn't just some random thing. I think they know that you put BYU on Fox or ESPN1 or whatever the main channel is, and you'll get. I mean, I personally believe if Oklahoma is 1 or 2 losses and BYU is maybe 1 or 2 losses, that game, it could be, a top 10, 15 game at the time. Just depends how the season would go. But we're way away from that. I like to dream, but it's a little bit far down the road now. So Matt, I know you said you might have to go. If you got to go, you can just say goodbye.
Yeah, actually. Thanks for bringing it up.
Go?
I've got an 18-month-old screaming her head off right now, so I'm gonna.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll do this again. I really appreciate the insight on BYU, and I hope if people are watching, you guys look up Matt Moon on Twitter. Do you want to say anything on the way out?
Yeah, just go if you want to go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm only at like 85 subscribers right now. I'm trying to get it rolling. So I'd appreciate it. Just dropped a video today about I ranked the top 25 teams in college football in my opinion preseason. I'm not super active on Twitter, so follow me if you want, but go check out the YouTube channel. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely, and it's not a problem. Thank you so much. And if there's anything I can do for you or your show, please let me know.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, you bet. Bye-bye.
Have a good night, Matt.
You too.
All right, let's dive back into realignment because that's why most of the people are here. I appreciate your patience, but I haven't done a ton of BYU because it's been unsettled. But Colorado sort of took care of that, gave me a little bit of a respite. So I appreciate everybody's patience. David Griffin, I think this is a brilliant question, and then this is the heart of what I was getting to. He says, I don't understand why everyone can't see FSU's plan to try to get the ACC to expand, to try to void their GOR and force ESPN to the table so they can leave the conference and blow up the ACC. David, just so you know, I've been saying that since last August. I don't understand why they don't. They should have done it, I think. But Immaculate, what do you think about that comment?
Hey, there's Mo in vision with this. I actually think that the problem isn't ESPN. The problem isn't necessarily the ACC. The problem is the SEC.
Right.
Because what ESPN is going to have to do with the ACC is going to require a large commitment by the SEC. And we've seen their comments. Oh, we're good at 16, all this.
Right.
Well, the best threat to get them off of that position is to show that, hey, Florida State in Tallahassee, Florida, which is the heart of SEC country, that could become a Big Ten home. And you start bringing Ohio State there, you bring Michigan there, you bring Penn State there, you bring Wisconsin there, you bring USC there, you bring Notre Dame there as a conference game, you bring Miami versus Florida State as a Big Ten conference game in Tallahassee. And all of a sudden, your grip on recruiting in the Southeast may not be so tight. So I think that this threat, if it's real and credible, this is what brings the SEC to the table.
I completely agree. And David, thank you very much for your comment. If you're just joining the channel, please subscribe, turn on your notifications. I have some of the best contributors in the country on my show. They're my partners. And you guys being here, you're going to learn stuff. So I really appreciate everybody being here. If you want to get your super chat in, those are the ones I definitely read. And then as I'm working through them, I'm trying to get all the other subscriber ones in too. All right, I've got a surprise here for everybody. Moen, who evidently is back from his party, has decided to join us. So, Moen, you've been on the phone all day, and you've been talking to people for about 3 weeks now about details in the Big Ten, and now with the ACC. Without exposing any of your contacts, can you catch us up to date to where we are right now?
Chaos. Chaos. Panic.
Panic.
Sounds about right.
Panic.
I want to hear that. Let's explore that. I'm your therapist right here. Let's explore panic.
Musical chairs. People with fear of missing out. There's a lot
FOMO,
of fear of missing out going on in the ACC and in the Pac-12. Colorado leaving caused a lot of people to get very, very, very nervous. And there are teams in the ACC who are going to push that grant of rights in the coming weeks.
Can I interrupt you right here?
Yeah.
I still don't understand this. You're repeating this. You're hearing it from people, maybe even contributors to these different conferences. But I'm still so shocked and confused. How could anybody, after all the smoke from the past 2 months about Colorado, in a serious vein, how could anybody be surprised that they decided to change? Can you guys answer that? Because I haven't heard one reason that actually holds water.
Real quick, and then I'll give it right back to Mo. And they live in a different world. All right. We are
Correct.
sitting where we are with a perspective. They're sitting in it's a different world when you're inside it. The shock from them, it's predictable and it's understandable, and it's causing a very large stir. And so I'm interested to hear more what Moen has to say on that. But yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's okay. So here's the thing. It's not like these teams and these schools weren't preparing to do this already.
Yes.
Colorado accelerated those plans.
Okay.
They did not foresee Colorado leaving.
Yeah, I just don't get that. I just don't get it. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it in an entire year, you couldn't go in a whiteboard room and say, "Hey, everybody, let's really explore. Open your minds to possibilities where we might be in a year. What could possibly happen?" I mean, my hell, guys, this is ridiculous. I run risk analysis as a project manager every day. I could have had a project like this thrown together in 24 hours. How I hear what you're saying, Immaculate. It goes beyond reason that they didn't do any of this planning.
There's a bit of ego to it. There's a bit of this can't be. We've been here for so long. We're the pack. We run this area of the country. They're not looking at the same things we are. When we look at ratings, that these great brands just aren't getting good ratings because the people over there aren't watching, we see something different than them. They're just looking at their schools, at how beautiful they are, how big they are, how much money they have.
I'm going to interrupt you there.
Yeah.
How many people are employed in an average university?
How many would you say, Moen?
It depends on the university. I mean, are we including everything within the university that falls under the university's
Let's
purview?
narrow it down just for the argument's sake. Let's say the athletic department.
Again, that depends on the university. It could be upwards of 2,000. It could be
that's
as few
it.
as
That's all I'm asking.
right.
It's
Right.
not 10.
It's not 10.
It's not
10.
15.
It's not
These guys-
15, but you got to remember
these
there's
guys
only
have-
a few people at the very top.
No, but I'm not talking about the people making the decision. I'm talking about the people that would be doing the grunt work to put stuff like this together for a presentation. I'm hearing what you're saying, Immaculate. It doesn't make sense they didn't have a small strike group of even students. Interns could have done this for them. Could have taken all
And
the
it's
data that we have access to and worked out a plan just in case.
It's not that, but that they have done that. I
If
mean,
they did
they've
it, then why
probably
are they
run through
confused now?
scenarios. They're not confused. There's no confusion at all.
Well,
There's
you said
panic.
Yeah, but panic comes
panic.
from not have planning.
No,
If you're
panic
planned,
comes
you don't
from
panic.
not being. No, it's coming from a place of people are trying to get in front of other people.
No, I get that part too.
Right. It's not just Colorado leaving, but to try and get into some of it, Florida State making this decision panics a lot of people within the ACC that want to get in front
I
of
get it.
Florida State.
I understand.
So that's where the panic's coming in, and it's just like a bank run. Once somebody does something, and then another person does it, and another person does it, and then it becomes a full-blown panic, and you have a bank run, and that's how banks go out of business and depressions start. So they have game theoried this a bit, but they haven't game reality yet. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. But
you guys are helping me.
They've thought, well, these things could happen. They just didn't think they would happen.
No, I think you're both right. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Right. It's pure arrogance.
Yeah.
It's arrogance that, people in academia tend to believe they know everything.
Well, the other part, let's jump ahead, and then I'm going to give some time to Immaculate because I cut him off. I'm sorry, Immaculate. I'll give it back to you.
You're good.
You missed at the beginning of the show, but I did put a comment in Greg's show when I called him about this idea that because of the panic and the bank run mentality, why is it out of the realm of possibility that Boston College, Syracuse, and Wake Forest call Brett Yormark and say, hey, if we come right now, will you guarantee us a spot? And then they go back and they tell the gang of 7, we don't want to get left behind. We secured spots. You guys do whatever you're going to do, and we'll help you break the thing up. Because they're missing votes, right? They're missing votes past 7.
They're missing votes, but they can't go out and actually. I mean, they can make inquiries.
Yeah, but that comes with information, though.
Right. They can make inquiries, but the Big 12 can't promise them anything.
I wasn't saying that. It's collusion. Right. I'm not getting into the legal part.
Right.
I'm saying, like what happened here with Taylor Randall and BYU's administration, right? They had people talking for them this entire time, and yet they never had to talk to Brett Yormark, and it was all these other underlings that were doing the communications. And then when somebody would ask them a question, they can answer honestly, no, I haven't spoken to Brett Yormark. What they're not saying is my intern just got off the phone 5 minutes ago with Brett Yormark's assistant, and this is what they're saying. So those communications can happen without them being official.
Two people could be sitting around having a conversation, and those two people both might have their cell phones out, and their cell phones happen to be dialed to someone, and that line is open and the person is listening, and that person that's listening on the other end might send them text in response to what they're hearing, but there's no direct conversation happening.
Okay. All right.
Right. And we don't know for a fact that 8 votes dissolves the ACC.
Oh,
I know that's been.
Is that a rumor?
It's been posited out there, but I've never seen any ACC bylaws that state it's 8 votes.
We don't know if it's a simple vote or if it's
Most conferences, in order to dissolve, have what's required as a supermajority vote, which is 75% or more.
Oh,
so it's not. We don't know for sure because we can't see the ACC bylaws.
Right, of course, nobody
comes
can.
to that. So the 8 to dissolve is still. We don't know if that's accurate or not. I should say. So it might require 12 to actually dissolve, which is
that's a lot.
Where you get into really trying to make sure that people have landing spots to go that route. But these ACC schools aren't going to go the dissolve route. They're going to go, let's get out of the grant of rights route. They're going to go, us as an individual school, Florida State is getting out of the ACC. Clemson is getting out of the ACC. Miami is getting out of the ACC. University of North Carolina is getting out of the ACC. And they're going to do all of these as individuals. This isn't a class action sort of thing. They're all going to have their lawyers pulling the same things, suing the ACC to get out of the grant of rights, more than likely trying to negotiate a buyback of their grant of rights so that they can join another conference.
So, in Immaculate, I'm going to let you run with this, but to everybody who's subscribed, everybody's here. Basically, Mullen just broke some news. It's not an official statement. It's only his opinion, but in his educated opinion, we're looking at a very near-term possibility that something happens with the ACC with the leaders of the ACC. All right, Immaculate, what do you think about all that?
Well, I say if everything he just said, if all of that, if there are credible threats lined up to give that support that this is a possibility, what you're looking at is a situation where schools like North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, these are toss-ups.
Yeah.
If you're the SEC and you're sitting there and you've made these statements of we're going to maintain our territorial integrity, we're going to have a very controlled footprint with whatever expansion we do in the future. And if you're looking at this and saying, do we want to take the risk that North Carolina picks us over the Big Ten? Do we want to take the risk that Florida State picks us over the Big Ten? Because they're not expanding across the country.
Right.
They're not. There's a very small area of expansion. Like if you look at the Magnificent Seven from the ACC, that's basically a list of who the SEC would take from the ACC if they were to expand to that degree.
Okay.
So with all this happening, it's either they break this or you have a brokered situation where, ESPN, SEC, ACC, Big 12. And then what you have there is maybe 2 or 3 schools that say, well, we're not going to go along with that. We really do want to be in the Big 10. And so there's going to be some measure of loss. Me personally, I have Notre Dame and Miami chalked up for the Big 10.
Yes, I think most people do at this point. Yeah.
I think that there is 0% chance that the SEC allows the Big 10 to get FSU without a major fight. I don't
agree.
see ESPN wanting to lose that brand.
Yep.
I don't see them wanting to see their SEC brand mitigated and minimized by the Big Ten having that kind of an invasion. That's what I'm calling it, because it literally would be. So I think that that's a very successful, what I'd call I don't even want to call it a bluff in terms of poker terms, because that may not be a bluff. They might have the money there and someone willing to spend it. But
and that's it's the person who's willing to put the money in.
Yeah, and I call it an investment.
It is an investment,
loan, but it's an investment too, because they're going to get paid back.
Yeah,
and I think that with what's coming with the conference playoffs and everything, the money's going to be bigger than most people realize.
Yeah.
So that investment could get paid back a lot sooner than maybe most people realize. I mean, we're talking, I don't know, 10, 20 years, but for an investment of that size and that nature to get whatever percentage they get back, that could be a good investment.
Mo, you want to add to that?
It's going to be upwards of $300 million.
Yeah, I've heard
that's
500.
what it's going to. Yeah, I think you're going to end up with a negotiated settlement at some point.
Right.
But that's what these schools are looking to get out of the ACC. The reason everybody's trying to get there first is they want their first crack at their conference of choice.
Right.
Florida State and Miami both won in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever can get there first is probably going to be in the Big Ten.
Right.
So you're going to see a race between those two. In my opinion, you're going to see a race between those two, jockeying to get their court cases heard first, get their all their filings done first against the ACC. You're going to have boosters from the University of North Carolina saying, okay, we'll pay this, but you have to go to whatever conference we want you to go to. That's the other thing too. For Miami, it's a private school. They don't really have to worry about it as much as Florida State does, because it's a state school. But whoever the booster is that's giving them all the money is ultimately who's going to make the decision on where they end up. If that booster from Florida State is giving them $250 million and says, you're going to the SEC, Florida State's going to the SEC.
Right.
They don't have a choice. I mean, that's part of the power of being a booster with that kind of money around. And it might be more than one booster. You might have a booster putting in $100 million, another booster kicking in $100 million, another booster kicking in $100 million. But the way this all is going to play out, in my opinion, is you're going to see these 3 or 4 schools make this push. That is going to lead Notre Dame to leave.
Right.
If there's any instability in the ACC and Notre Dame hasn't inked their deal with NBC, they're going to leave.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
they
gonna
have
ask
the
about that.
easiest path to get out.
Right.
And in addition to that easiest path to get out, them getting out actually frees up. It gives every other school in that conference a legal maneuver to get out.
Right. Of course.
So
Yeah.
that's
I agree
where
with
we're
you.
at. We could see everything settled by 2026.
So we've talked about that tonight a little bit. The
Right.
date.
We
Yeah.
could see everything settled by 2026. It could happen that fast.
So let me get to the super chat from Ryan Thomas, who's also one of the contributors to the show. $1.99 to say arrogance makes fools of scholars. That's a response to our earlier conversation, and I couldn't agree more. Then we got a comment here from Earl Carr, who's another one of our subscribers. He says, "Love Brett the Terminator your mark. He has proved time and time again he is the right guy to head the Big 12." So let's take it to the next level. You guys have just raised really big questions. So my first question is, if this all happens, and we're talking about this near term, in the next 2, 3, maybe even 2 weeks, let's just everything has to. In fact, let me back up. The August 15th date. You were talking about filing paperwork for lawsuits and all that other stuff. Can you explain to everybody who's watching why that 15th of August is such a big deal to the ACC?
That has to do with the way the ACC is set up. That has to do with their calendar year. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to speak out of turn on what it is, but there is a reason that it has to be before August 15th. But that's if they even file by then. What they have to do first is have their Board of Regents approve the formation of that fund and that
Right.
loan.
Okay. And
Which
you're
we don't know
referring.
how that.
Sorry.
I'm referring to Florida State.
I know.
Miami doesn't have
Yeah.
that problem. Miami's a private institution; they can just go.
Yeah.
Public schools though will have to have that vote.
I was just going to say the audit, if I could talk, August 2nd date is what you're referring to. There's a Board of Regents for Florida State scheduled.
Correct.
They've already put out the agenda, and there is a line item that says, yeah, we're going to look at this. And that is, I believe, August 2nd. So everybody can look that up online. Just put in Florida State Board of Regents, August 2nd, and you'll get the agenda. I got a comment here and this was an open question. I asked Greg about it before. I actually asked Jim Williams because nobody's seen the ACC Gore. I don't know how David could know this, but he's saying if ESPN reopens the TV deal with the ACC, the Gore would have to be renegotiated as well. I heard that rumor probably 100 times, David. Can either of you guys confirm or deny that?
To my knowledge, when they redid the deal with Notre Dame being in the conference, they had to redo the Gore. They had to get a re-signing because you're granting your rights for a television deal. That's why they do Gores after that. That's why we heard that from the PAC, is that once you have a deal, you then grant your rights for that. It's a proposal until the rights are granted. With a new deal, I would think that in order for that to take place, a new grant of rights for that would have to happen. So yeah, I would tend to think that that'd be the case if they're going to have to do a new deal because of a departure, that the Gore is pretty much out. And it with if like FSU was to leave, the value difference in that conference would give a school of, say, like Notre Dame pretty big pause to say, like, our deal with the conference is now should legally be voided out because the value there isn't what it was when we signed this. Your thoughts on that, Moen? Is that kind of where you're looking at that?
That's 100. I can't comment further on it. That's 100% accurate.
Yeah,
it's a line of dominoes here.
Yeah.
One falls, one falls, one falls, one falls.
Yeah, because once the value of that deal is changed, I would say it's at least a credible threat that we could take it to court and have a judge void the deal because the values involved in both sides are now different, so the consideration is considered invalid.
Right. And for Notre Dame, it's going to be much less expensive to fight.
Yeah.
They have a very particular arrangement. I know people push them. They must join the ACC by 2036. The NBC, Fox, and CBS lawyers don't believe in that clause. If they believed in that clause, they would not have added Notre Dame specifically into that 5-year contract. No, Notre Dame can get free. And when Notre Dame does get free, it's going to give everybody else a possibility to get free too. So some of this maneuvering by places like Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina could just be to create enough instability to push Notre Dame to do that, so they have a clearer path themselves.
All right, very good. This matters. I'll get to Sergeant Pickles' comment right now. He says the Big 12 should be careful with the college football negotiations. Idea has been thrown out that the SEC and the Big will try to kill auto bids. I don't think the auto bids thing is a big deal. This is my opinion right now. I'll let these guys also say their answer, but I personally don't think the auto bids thing is a real big deal because that's only one spot. Just guaranteeing one spot doesn't really affect the rest of the conference anyway. Again, my opinion. The auto bids could go away if you get really good teams. I think that the parity in the play will put those schools into the college football playoff. What do you guys think about auto bids?
Moen?
I oppose auto bids. I think it should just be 12 best.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people are afraid that it's going to just be the SEC and big teams in there. But once we get the portal situated, once we get NIL situated, where everybody's playing on the same level, the same level playing field, it'll sort itself out. The new Big 12 is going to have 2 or 3 teams in there every year.
Yeah.
You're going to have a BYU in there. You're going to get maybe a Texas Tech one year. You might get an Oklahoma State one year.
Right.
You're gonna have Big 12 teams in there.
Yeah, I think the auto bids and that. Sorry, Immaculate, if I cut you off really quick. The auto bids thing when there was 5 conferences plus the 6th for the group of 5, that was a different matter, right? Then the auto bids really mattered because there was a lot more competition for the one spot, and there were only 4 openings. Even when it went to 12, the idea that there was still 5 conferences, which I don't think there will be by 26, just having one in against 5 or 6, again, that's a huge percentage. Now that we're talking about only having 3 and a potential rest of, which would maybe get one more. And I just don't think it matters. Immaculate, what do you think?
Well, this is one of those topics where I get the joy of actually going head to head with Moen on it and disagreeing.
Oh, I'm going to sit back. Where's my popcorn? All right, go ahead.
and because of that, I have to say, like, I'm definitely not guaranteed right on this. I don't think he's right on it, but he could be right and I could be dead wrong. I go in the exact opposite direction. I am AQ is here to stay. They wouldn't have put it in these next 2 years unless they were looking to make that more of an actual permanent thing, and whatever the agreement is in 2026, because what's going on right now is they're basically making ESPN extra money in return for gathering data on these next 2 years on what to do in 2026. So the AQs, that's new. Okay, that's not going anywhere. The buys, those are new. That's not going anywhere. Right. The first round home games, instead of them being bowl game neutral sites, that's new. That's not going anywhere. These are the test things. Like if you're running a scientific test, these are your new things you're testing to get numbers on. So I think not only is it here to stay, in the future, what I'm seeing is that's the only thing for the national playoff, and we're actually going to have conference playoffs, which is kind of crazy to think about when you're at 5 major conferences and all the lesser conferences. But if you go to 3 major conferences, and then we also get a whole bunch of merging and moving going on down in the G's here, probably next year, now you could just have a conference championship national tournament, which it's all AQs, and a lot of the money is actually going to be down in the conference playoffs. That's just my opinion. I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with that right now, and that's fine. But as we saw with Brett Yormark and the talk about, what he thought about the national tournament, he said, we need a whiteboard. We need to do this entirely from scratch. We need to remake this thing. And I don't think that he's just talking for himself in this. I think he's talked with a lot of people. And I think that this is the idea that is out there, that the conferences want to ensure, especially the big ones, SEC, Big Ten, want to ensure that more of the money is coming to them rather than, what if we have a bad year and we only get 1 or 2 teams in, which, I mean, not likely, but talking point is there. That's where I think it's going. I don't think AQ is going anywhere, so I'm not worried about that at all.
You want 2 minutes to counter that, Moen?
I mean, I couldn't disagree more. I don't believe in the conference tournament. I know Immaculate's very passionate about it, but I just simply don't believe in that. I believe the best way to determine the national champion is to have the 12 best teams in.
So Moen and I are aligned. I love that because that doesn't happen all the time.
I would say
So-
the majority of people would agree with you guys and not me.
Yeah. The one thing that I think would be a barrier to the program that you're talking about, Immaculate, this is, again, just my opinion, when you're describing it, is the more conference playoff games you put in, it's more opportunity for kids to get hurt. They're already screaming about having more games at the end for a 12-team playoff. Having sub playoffs is just adds more.
Yeah,
games.
but I'm taking away games from the main playoff. I'm not keeping it the same size.
Okay, so what does it shrink to?
6.
Okay. Yeah, so you're saying the top 6.
I'm taking conference playoff, 5 division champions, 1 wild card team,
But
2 buys, and whoever wins the whole conference playoff goes in as the conference champion as an AQ into the national tournament in the future. And so there will be 6 of those. I don't quite know how many G conferences there will be. So there will be, if there's 3 Gs, then it would be all of their champions. If there's 4 or 5, then there would be the top 3. But and I know people don't like that, but what they don't have right now is visibility on those schools. If they each also have a conference tournament, there's a whole lot more visibility right leading up to that. People love Cinderellas in the national basketball tournament. And quite frankly, those G conferences all have an individual vote in the conference football playoff company with the directors that decide this. So they're not out of this conversation. And if you take away AQs, why would they vote for that?
So one thing I think you misspoke, but you said there were going to be 6 conference champions. In 3 years, we're going to be talking about 3, right?
I'm talking about the G's as well. They have equal votes in the conference football playoff.
But all 3 of us know that they don't have the power.
They have equal power in that regard, not in other regards, in that regard.
Yeah, they don't have access to the media partners, though, like everybody else does.
No,
I mean,
but
it's not a fair system.
I'm purely talking about the vote and how to form the conference football playoff.
Okay, that's fair. All right, Moen, you started to say something.
Right. I was going to say this. The majority of those G teams aren't going to ever play in the playoff.
Right.
Those 99.5% are going to want the money the A3 is generating.
Right.
Everybody's going to get a cut of the playoff. So as unfair as it may seem, those G5 schools are going to say, we're fine with this. Pay us our 10, 15, 25 million dollars that you guys are getting from this for our school.
Sure.
And I know that's unfair. That's capitalism. Sometimes it sucks, but that's just the way I think it is.
I agree with you.
If I could to that, here's what I would say to that is the situation in college football right now is that during the regular season, it's extremely supply heavy. There's nothing there beyond like the top 3 conferences really to get much show. The postseason is just the opposite. It's extremely demand heavy with a very small supply. You could expand the national tournament to 16 teams and you're still demand heavy. Whereas if you start to go to a system where each of these conferences now has their own playoff, including some of these smaller conferences, they can actually get TV deals for their postseason, whereas they may not have it for their regular season. And I would dare say if you're the pittance that they're getting on the side for this, for just, giving their vote, I would say it's actually less than what they could get for conference postseason play, even though that might seem crazy to everyone, and I get it. But
It's okay.
But the amount of supply of inventory to be shown is so so small for the postseason that just by creating that content, there's value there.
I still think though that there value. Who wants to? There's already a championship with Montana State and North Dakota State. They already have a tournament.
Mhm.
They're not getting any kind of money.
It's the FCS.
All I'm saying but nobody. Let's do the MAC champion. I don't even know who those schools are. Let's talk about the Mountain West champion.
Okay.
Those games, they're all tournaments. It's still a championship game, and they're not drawing huge numbers. Just creating a tournament doesn't drive viewers. It adds games.
What I'm proposing is not just creating a tournament. It's creating a tournament whose champion gets into the national tournament. Now, the MAC champion has a championship game, and then they go and they play in some exhibition bowl game that no one gives a damn about. So why would I care about that game? But if that game is coming after 3 weeks of games that lead up to this champion, and so we have a really good look at one of these teams, and we might say, well, holy shit, I didn't know about these guys. This is actually a decent team. I'm kind of curious about this. And they're going to be in this tournament, so now we have to look at them. We have to rate them. We have to give them odds for gambling. We got to do all of that. There's going to be a lot more of a look at them because of this conference tournament system. And then with the AQ into the national tournament, like I said, if it's a 6-team tournament, you have 2 buys. That's the SEC and the Big Ten every year. So your first round would be one of those games going against the Big 12 champion, and then another one where you're having basically 2 Cinderellas go at each other. Now, is everyone going to watch that? No, but how many people will now that it's part of this?
I think we're just playing devil's advocate here. I knew this would do this when we brought this up, but because I know how both of you feel about it. Just hearing what you're saying though, you believe that the MAC champion would deserve access to the college football playoff that Alabama or Georgia has been winning recently, instead of seeing, and let's go all the way out to 16 teams, instead of seeing the 4th or 5th best team in the SEC. Because if you put the MAC champion against any of those schools that qualify normally in the top 16 in the country, don't you think it's not really Cinderella in football. It's not basketball. They'll get boat raced. I mean, they could get really hurt. The disparity in the skill set and talent is just like the difference between Alabama and the MAC champion is about the same as the worst NFL team and Georgia last year. I mean,
as of now. But what if you give them access?
But that doesn't drive players to them though. Their players want to play in the NFL, so they're going to go to all the blue bloods and all the ones that are in the top 25 all the time. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. I don't think you can do basketball and football. I don't think they compare.
No, and these aren't bad points as to why it might be a bad system. But the reason why I come to this is based upon who actually has control of the College Football Playoff Corporation. The board of directors, their stockholders. To buy them out of that would be expensive. Like, I couldn't even give a number. Maybe Mullen better could. I'm just saying they have a say in it. As of right now, Notre Dame's kind of, in my opinion, has probably stymied a lot within there because they can just jump from side to side. But that's where the decisions are made, and those schools have a say in it. Are they willing to take, just to pay out like Moen is saying? Possibly. Maybe people say that's the more likely case, and it might be. I'm just looking at something where this is possible, and this is very different. This is if you were to, like Yormark said, take a whiteboard and completely redo it.
Right, he did say that, yeah.
Whereas what Moen is saying is what I think most people want to see, and what's going on, but that certainly doesn't match up with what Yormark said. Now, that doesn't mean he's wrong and I'm right, or that even Yormark's right. I'm just saying I think they're going somewhere very different with 2026, and that's why they need all this movement to happen, because they need to know what the lineup's going to be before they can create this thing, if they're going to create it from scratch on a whiteboard, so to speak. You know what I mean?
I do. I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying. So let me call out a couple super chats, by the way. Ryan Thomas, I'm almost done with the show. I apologize. I knew this was going to go long, but I gotta be done by 7 or she's gonna kill me. So I want to recognize Ryan and Brent Nichols for their super chats, and also we got one here from Gorb. It's nice to see you, Gorb. He says thanks, y'all. All right, so we got, what time is it? We got 15 minutes. Moen, you listened a lot there. I'm going to give you a chance to sort of digest all that, and then we'll get some comments and try to buzz through some of these activities.
Sure. I completely understand where you're coming from with the Cinderella team, but I think you can easily achieve that with the number 12 team upsetting the number 5 team in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I agree with that.
With the number 11 team upsetting the number 6 team.
Yeah.
And then you have that story without putting G5 teams on the field. Because as unfair as it is, a G5 team on that field, they may win 1 out of every 25. The rest of the time, it's not going to be a competitive game.
No.
And nobody's going to watch it after it's 21-0. And the networks who paid for it, they sell advertising rates. If it dips below a certain rating, they have to give that money back to advertisers, and they definitely don't want to do that. So I just don't see it where we're going to have 6 teams and 2 of them will be G5 or 3 of them will be G5s in the college football playoff. I can't see people standing for an Ohio State, a Penn State, a Texas, a Florida, a Michigan, an Oregon, a USC being left out in favor of Appalachian State. And no offense to Appalachian State. Lord knows I love Appalachian State. Whenever I'm down, I just type into YouTube, Appalachian State, Michigan. I love Appalachian State. I will always root for Appalachian State. If you're in Columbus and you see a guy with a jersey that says Moen and you tell me you're from Appalachian State, drinks are on me.
Oh, I love it.
I love it. I just don't want to see. I don't think anybody wants to really see that. I think, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
All right, one last reply, and then I got to get some of these comments. Go ahead,
okay.
Immaculate.
Yeah, like I'm saying, my whole thing depends upon such a massive change creating a change in the balance.
Right.
Will that happen? I certainly am not going to guarantee it. What I will throw out there is the scenario that definitely throws a bone in the whole process of mine is watch the Ivy League. Watch what's going on with that lawsuit for anyone who knows about it. If they decide that their traditional culture there is dead in the water and then they need to change that, they also need to act within this window in order to get up into the area where they can actually make money off of football. So I wouldn't be surprised if something happens that really changes all this because we can't see it happen. So if that was to happen, that would replace one of the lower conferences in this.
Okay. I think we've lost some people. It's gone really long. This is an exercise I think is important, though. And if you stuck around and you're still here, just so you know, I think these are the type of backstory things that you don't normally hear about. And so I think it's important to put on my show. It might not be the most popular thing to talk about, but I know this is what the bigwigs are talking about, is the organization for 2026 and realignment. All right, let's get to a few of these really quick. Go Black 45. He says, I don't care if Toledo goes undefeated, beating a team like Michigan State, they do not belong in the playoffs. So that's just, we can take that without comment, I think. Unless you guys want to say something.
It's a valid point. I mean,
yeah. If Greg is in here, if Greg Swaim is in here, I sent you an invite. If you want to join the show, I saw a comment over here that says he thinks you might know something. So if you're here, Greg, take that light or take the invitation and that DM and join us. All right, let's see here. Let's talk about this one. Craig Hirsch says, Stubby 1085 Fox. Yes, Fox cared about Rutgers because of the time in the market was a huge moneymaker. Those times are changing. Do you guys agree with that?
Well, you still need markets.
Yeah, you still need someone to lose games too.
Right. Okay, that's fair.
If I could I ask him something here real quick?
Sure.
I really want to get before you end, and this kind of takes us back to what I think people are caring about. Moen, what do you think about Oregon now? Are you like, if you were to give odds of them going to the Big 12 instead of the Big 10, could you do that?
I would say it's next to zero.
Which way? Which one?
That I don't think that they would go to the Big 12
Okay, so you're still Oregon to the Big 10?
until we see what happens in the pack and how they stem that bleeding. If the pack can get away with just losing Arizona, I think they still can get a TV deal. It's not going to be a good one, but it's going to be good enough for them to stick together at least another year and a half, to where the Big Ten can get everything in order. I eventually, Oregon's going to be a Big Ten school.
Okay.
As much as I dislike that and I hate Oregon, and everybody in Columbus hates Oregon right now, yeah, I think Oregon and Washington are Big Ten schools. Okay. It's just going to be a matter of who else is joining them on the West Coast pod.
You've had some things to say about Oregon from your perspective, so I was just kind of curious what you saw in that.
Yeah.
Another comment here from Sergeant Pickles. He says, pouring out one for the pack. Never forget. Oh, he's in lament mode right now. Hey, the Moen just gave you some life, Pickles. If you're still here, he said the Pac-12 is going to stick around for 2 or 3 more years because the Big Ten isn't ready, and I think everybody agrees. The Big Ten is not ready. If you want your comment read here at the end of the show, it's going to have to be a super chat. I'm going to buzz through some of these others that have been waiting for a while. Let's see here. Let's see what this one is. Stubby says, once one more team goes to the Big 12, Oregon will know that's when they are sinking and financially in a financial ship. What do you guys think about that?
Here's the thing. If more teams, say Arizona State, and we'll say Utah, backs down and leaves for the Big 12.
Right.
The Big Ten, there might be enough support among the Big Ten presidents using what I call the Pottery Barn rule. You broke it, you bought it. And Oregon and Washington would probably be brought in for the 2024 season. Cal might also get that invitation extended to them. However, Stanford probably will not, unless Stanford agrees to abide by the same rules on research sharing that every other Big Ten university agrees to.
Yeah. It's what people don't talk about, and that's just no way.
Yeah, I think all three of us thought that they're going to be in the Big Ten. It's just a matter of the timing. So if the Four Corners go, I think everybody agrees they'll go to the Big Ten, maybe at a lower rate, maybe not. But
they would have a reduced rate. It would be a reduced. It'd just be just like Maryland and Rutgers were. They will be at a reduced rate, and they may say that's unfair because of USC and UCLA. Well,
they're not the
USC
same.
and UCLA are not the same, and they had better timing. But yeah, I think there would be enough sympathy vote within the Big Ten presidents to try and throw those programs a lifeboat. Unfortunately for Oregon State and Washington State, I just don't know what's out there. I don't know that the Big 12 would take them right now, and they might be relegated to just joining the new Mountain West.
Yeah, I agree with you, Washington and Oregon. I do have Oregon at 50-50 at this point, but I guess I would still lean towards them to the Big Ten. I have Arizona State instead of California. California just kind of hitching their wheel to the Stanford. My biggest worry of Pac schools right now is Washington State. I think the others can all sneak in. I'm really not sure about Washington State. We'll see.
They're a mess, unfortunately.
They don't have a good stadium for TV. They got a really bad location. I actually see San Diego State has maybe taken the spot that they might have got.
I don't know about San Diego State. I used to be high on San Diego State. I'm not so much anymore.
They got a really solid new stadium there. And with the Southern California position out of a school that you don't need to win or do anything other than provide a great location for TV in case they happen to be scheduled against a big-time winning team at the end of the season, or provide you a location that you really want to be in. They've got two things that are actually better than Washington State, and at that position where it would be, they might be stronger.
I think they're both going to be in the same conference for a while.
Might be.
Craig Kirsch here says, sorry, Mo and Vision, the Pac isn't getting a deal anywhere close to keep the four corner schools. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, it's not a matter of what the deal is. The deal could be 19 million per school. It could be 13 million per school.
Right.
If Utah makes that move, the best thing Oregon State could do right now is call Brett Yormark and say yes.
I think they did. I think that happened
Okay.
already. Yeah.
That would be their best move right now.
Yeah.
Get in there before Utah is forced to make their decision. But again, I feel like Utah would be placed in the same boat as Oregon and Washington, where there would be enough sympathy vote from the Big Ten presidents
Yeah, I don't believe that one.
to bring them on. USC and UCLA won't be happy about it, but it is what it is.
If that deal for the Pac is going to be very low, that's damaging. Yeah, it covers part of the deal, but it's damaging to whomever's there. And so if they want to preserve those brands in their entirety and their value, might have to sign them sooner rather than later.
If you're just watching right now, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, and then either do a super chat to get your comment read, or you can subscribe and go to the Big 12 Mafia website on YouTube and subscribe using that join button and go from there. All right, I'm going to bring this up. Moen, tell us what this is.
This is the James Cancer Hospital at Ohio State, one of the premier cancer hospitals in the world and research institutes in the world. We do a lot of good work out of there, clinical trials. Lots of new cancer techniques have been developed right here at the James Cancer Hospital in conjunction with the either 7 or 8 other members in the Big Ten Cancer Research Consortium. If you get a chance, donate. You can pick whatever cancer you want to donate to. You can pick to general research. You can pick to the building fund. I will try and take some pictures next time I'm down there to show you just how massive the James Cancer Hospital has become. I was diagnosed with leukemia in 2012. Spent the better part of 8 months at the James Cancer Hospital. Went in with a 25% chance of survival, and 10 years later, I'm still cancer-free as a result of the work they do there.
Wow.
So, Moen, you and I have something in common. I'm glad we did this. We're going to have to talk offline, like on a phone call, because I got some stuff to tell you about me. I'm just saying I'm more important than you are. That's all that was. All right, here we go. Please go and donate. This is a great cause, and it's really important, and I fully support it. So thanks, Moen, for going through that. If you want to bring somebody in at some point that wants to do a little 5 or 10 minute thing, I'd be happy to host them. Okay?
Yeah, I'll talk to him.
All right,
I'll
very
talk
good.
to him down there.
Let's see. Try to get to a few more. This one, Oregon being AU is strange since their research numbers are so low. That is fact.
Thank
That
you.
is fact. Yep. And if you've watched our shorts on the Holy Rivals show, we've done some videos that actually break that down and show how pathetic everything about Oregon is, except for Nike. So
It's almost unexplainable. I mean, people are like, why is that the case? I'd just throw up my arms. Like, I have no idea.
it's
They're
Nike.
founders.
Yeah.
They're founders.
Yeah.
They're founders of the AAU. So they get that nudge.
They just never raised it up from when they joined, when they were part of the start.
Oh, yeah, I
They
think
don't- 'cause they
the
don't
AAU was
care.
formed in.
Like they're at like 150 now, and they were at 150 when they started.
Right, probably. Sergeant Pickle says he's at the 4th stage of 5 stages of grief. That's good to know. Don't stay away from sharp objects. That's all I'm saying, Pickles. You have my number. Give me a call anytime. Let's get to a few more here. If the Big Ten, I guess, Prez doesn't want Oregon until 2026, where the heck are they supposed to go for 2 years?
Well, that's if they take that terrible media deal. If they get some kind of deal with Apple for 2 or 3 years and just take it and suck it up and just do the best they can. But like I said, I think if 4 schools leave the pack for the Big 12, I think the Big Presidents will probably bring them in at that reduced rate for the length of the media contract. I think they will acquiesce to Fox. Fox isn't going to be real high on bringing a Cal or a Utah in, but that's kind of going to be the price for them getting the Oregon in that they want.
Yeah, I still don't. Every time you say that, I'm always going to say I still don't believe that. But that's because I'm
Yeah.
a BYU fan. Immaculate, you want to say anything to that?
I would say the debate, the negotiation, the compromise on this isn't actually going to be between Washington and Oregon and the Big Ten. It would be between the Big Ten and Fox and NBC. I'm not saying CBS on purpose. I think for NBC, getting Washington and Oregon in there sooner is better for their end of that deal. So it's really going to come down to the Big Ten doesn't want to do it yet. But at the same time, they might look at the value in doing it now, but also realize they can probably extract a pretty good value out of the networks for doing it sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Right.
I'm going to wrap this up by reading the names of all the all my membership subscribers. Rick Banovich, Sooner Lemon, Andrew Barchuk, Kaufman, Sticky Sports, Kadu, Mark Ruckert, Blake 50785, Vernon Sheldon, Sergeant Pickles, Bill G, Glenn Lumen, Earl Carr, BR 7062, I'll get that in, EJ Brown, Pac-12 Pilgrim, and I believe the last one is my parents. So we will sign off with that. Appreciate everybody being here. You guys, this time is awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Moen, and thanks, Immaculate. Appreciate you going and being here with me tonight.
I appreciate being on here as always. Just saying to the chat, great chat tonight, and I'm always looking to try and connect with them while we're going and interact with them. So great job for everyone staying active in there. It makes this a lot more fun.
And I appreciate all the comments and all the ribbing you guys give to each other. Thank you for keeping it civil. And I'm trying to stay positive through all this current change. Again, please subscribe if this is your first time. Otherwise, everybody have a great night. And I have a show tomorrow night at 5 o'clock Eastern. So look for that, and I'll send out those invites tomorrow. Appreciate it. Everybody have a great night. Peace. If I can hit my brand, here we go.